Most people think going broke happens suddenly, like a financial earthquake that shakes your entire life in one day. But the truth is far more silent, far more subtle, and far more dangerous than anyone realizes. People don't go broke because of one bad decision. They go broke because of tiny daily habits that slowly drain their future without them ever noticing it. And that's where the $5 rule comes in. Because this rule exposes the hidden leak that keeps millions stuck in the cycle of surviving instead of building. It reveals how the smallest decisions, ones you ignore, justify, or laugh about, are quietly shaping your financial destiny. You see, the human brain is designed to protect you from big losses. If someone tried to take $1,000 from you, you'd panic, fight back, push against it, and do everything to protect your money. But when you lose $5, your brain doesn't react. It tells you it's nothing, it's small, it's not worth worrying about, and that tiny blind spot is exactly how financial decay begins. The $5 rule isn't about never spending $5. It is about becoming aware of every unconscious decision that steals your wealth, because those tiny leaks compound faster than people imagine. Most people can point out their big expenses easily. Rent, car payments, utilities, those are the obvious ones. But ask someone to account for the random $5 they spent today, yesterday, and the day before. And suddenly they freeze because they don't even remember where their money went. And if you cannot track where your money is going, you cannot control where your life is heading. The $5 rule forces you to become aware of the power of small money. Because small money has two possible futures. It can disappear forever, or it can grow into something life-changing. When you treat $5 like it doesn't matter, you're training your brain to treat money casually, emotionally, and impulsively. But when you treat $5 with respect, you're training your mind for wealth, discipline, and long-term power. The $5 rule is simple. If it's under $5 and you didn't plan it, pause before you spend it. That pause is everything. It interrupts the automatic emotional spending that keeps people broke. Because here's the truth. People rarely go broke from large mistakes. They go broke from thousands of tiny, unplanned decisions that slowly drain the stability they work so hard to build. Think about it. $5 a day becomes $35 a week. $35 a week becomes $150 a month. $150 a month becomes $1,800 a year. And most people burn through that without realizing it. They don't track it, they don't question it, and they don't even remember it. Now imagine that same money invested instead of wasted. Imagine it compounding at 7 to 10% for the next 10, 20, or 30 years. Your small money becomes your freedom. Your tiny decisions become your wealth. But most people never see this because $5 doesn't feel important. And that's exactly why it's powerful. Because the smallest habits build the biggest futures. The $5 rule forces you to take responsibility for the seeds you plant every day. It reminds you that every dollar has a job, and your job is to assign it wisely. Money is not just currency. It's energy, direction, opportunity, and potential waiting to be multiplied. When you spend $5 without thinking, you're not just losing money. You're losing the chance for that money to grow into something meaningful. The people who stay broke are the ones who believe small decisions don't matter. The people who get rich are the ones who understand that small choices shape big destinies. If you rewind your life right now and add up all the just $5 moments you ignored, you'll realize you've thrown away more opportunities than you ever imagined. But here's the beautiful part. The moment you understand this rule, you never go back to the old version of yourself. Because once you see how your small actions compound, you begin to treat every dollar like a tool, not a toy. You start making decisions with purpose instead of impulse. You start telling your money where to go instead of wondering where it disappeared. And suddenly, the leaks in your financial life begin to close. The chaos begins to settle. The stress begins to fade. You gain control, clarity, and confidence because you finally understand something the wealthy have known for centuries. You don't need more money to build wealth. You need more discipline. The $5 rule builds that discipline. It rewires your brain to respect money even when the amount seems small, because the person who respects $5 is the same person who will one day manage 5,000 or 50,000. Wealth doesn't show up when you make more money. Wealth shows up when you treat your current money with intention. And the $5 decisions you make today are shaping the financial future you'll experience tomorrow. Every dollar you keep becomes a soldier working for you. Every dollar you waste becomes a soldier lost. The question is, are you building an army, or are you letting your future slip through your fingers one small decision at a time? The $5 rule is the turning point. It takes you from unconscious spending to intentional building. It takes you from surviving month to month to creating long-term financial strength that cannot be shaken. And the moment you commit to this rule, something incredible happens inside you. You stop being the person who reacts to life, and you become the person who directs it. Because financial freedom doesn't start with thousands of dollars. It starts with the decision to respect the smallest amounts, even when no one is watching. And that decision, repeated consistently, becomes the foundation of a life where you never have to fear going broke again. The moment you start applying the $5 rule, something subtle but powerful begins to shift in your life. You start noticing things you never paid attention to before. And those tiny moments of awareness become the foundation of your financial transformation. Because the real purpose of the $5 rule isn't to stop you from spending. It's to wake you up from financial autopilot, the state most people live in without realizing it. Autopilot is what keeps people stuck in cycles of spending, stress, and survival. You earn, you pay bills, you buy random things you don't even remember buying, and then wonder where your money disappeared. It becomes a loop that feels impossible to escape because nothing seems big enough to worry about. But the truth is that nothing becomes big until you repeat it enough times. The $5 rule breaks that loop by introducing one simple but life-changing question. Do I actually need this, or am I just reacting? That question alone can save you from years of financial frustration. Because once you stop reacting and start choosing, your entire financial reality begins to change. The average person spends more money emotionally than logically. Small purchases are often a response to boredom, stress, habit, or impulse rather than intention. And emotional spending is the most expensive spending of all, not because of the price, but because of the long-term habit it creates, a habit that slowly erases your ability to build wealth. The $5 rule forces you to break that habit. It gives you a moment of clarity before you act, a moment most people never give themselves. You might think $5 can't change your life, but the discipline behind that $5 absolutely can. Because if you can't control your small impulses, you will never be able to control your larger opportunities. People dream of making millions, but they struggle to manage the first small step required to get there. They want big results without mastering the small decisions that create them. The wealthy understand something most people ignore. Money is built through mastering habits, not waiting for miracles. That's why the $5 rule is powerful. It turns your daily decisions into training for wealth. It teaches your brain to pause, assess, and choose instead of react, waste, and regret. At first, the pause feels small and almost insignificant. But over time, that pause becomes a pattern, and that pattern becomes a mindset. And once your mindset changes, your bank account naturally follows. This is why wealthy people appear so intentional with their money. It's not because they're stingy. It's because they understand the long-term consequences of short-term decisions. They know $1 thrown away today is $1 that can't grow tomorrow. And they know $1 invested today is a seed that can multiply for decades. The $5 rule trains you to think like that. It forces you to see every dollar as something with potential instead of something disposable. Imagine the version of you who starts applying this rule consistently. Suddenly, you're saving without even trying, investing without forcing yourself, and budgeting without stress. Your money starts obeying you instead of controlling you. Your decisions become clearer because your priorities become clearer. And once your priorities shift, everything else follows. Your distractions get weaker. Your discipline gets stronger. You begin to recognize which purchases actually add value to your life and which ones simply fill temporary emotional gaps. This is where the transformation deepens, because once you gain control over small spending, you gain control over the one thing most people lose completely: momentum. Momentum is the quiet engine behind wealth building. It's the compounding effect not just of money, but of discipline, clarity, and consistency. Every time you follow the $5 rule, you strengthen that momentum by proving to yourself that you're capable of controlling your impulses. That confidence carries into bigger decisions: savings, investments, career choices, and even lifestyle habits. You stop acting like a passenger in your financial life and begin acting like the driver. And here's something most people don't know. The fastest way to build wealth is not through earning more. It's through wasting less. Because the money you keep has more power than the money you earn. Earning increases your income, but discipline increases your net worth. The $5 rule builds that discipline in a way that feels natural and sustainable. It becomes a habit that doesn't take effort because it becomes part of who you are. And once something becomes part of your identity, it no longer feels like a restriction. It feels like freedom. You begin to take pride in making smart choices. You begin to feel powerful when you say no to things that used to control you. You start seeing your savings grow without stress. You start seeing your financial goals become more realistic. Because when you stop wasting the small money, the big money finally starts to make a difference. This is why so many people feel stuck even after getting raises or earning more. Their spending habits rise with their income, leaving them with the same problems at a higher level. But the $5 rule breaks that cycle immediately. It teaches you how to grow into the kind of person who can handle more money without losing it. Money is attracted to discipline. It flows toward people who manage it with intention, not emotion. And the $5 rule gives you the foundation to become that person. One small choice at a time, one paused decision at a time, one mindful moment at a time. Imagine where you'll be a year from now if you apply this rule every day. Imagine the savings you'll build, the investments you'll accumulate, the confidence you'll develop. Imagine the opportunities you'll finally have the capacity to say yes to, because your financial base is stronger, safer, and more controlled. The $5 rule might look simple on the surface, but simplicity is where real power hides. Because the habits that change your life are never dramatic. They are small, repeatable, and easy to overlook. Most people ignore them, but the people who apply them create futures that others can only dream about. And if you're ready to become that kind of person, the $5 rule is your first step toward not just avoiding being broke, but building real, lasting freedom. Once you begin mastering the $5 rule, something deeper starts happening. Your relationship with money transforms in a way most people never experience. You start to feel in control, not because you suddenly have more money, but because you finally understand how to direct the money you already have. This feeling is rare, powerful, and life-changing. Because most people live in a constant state of financial reaction, responding to every unexpected expense like it's a crisis. They get stressed over minor bills, panicked over emergencies, and discouraged when life gets unpredictable. Not because they don't earn enough, but because they've never built the discipline that creates financial stability. The $5 rule is the training ground for that stability. It strengthens your financial muscles in small, consistent ways until they are powerful enough to carry bigger responsibilities. This is how discipline works. It grows quietly. It starts with tiny choices, and those choices build into a system that supports your entire life. Every time you question a $5 purchase, you strengthen the part of your brain that controls decision making instead of letting impulse take over. And when you strengthen that part of your brain, you begin operating in a way most people never do. You become intentional instead of emotional. This shift is massive because financial strength has nothing to do with how much you earn, and everything to do with how much control you have over what you spend. Someone earning $50,000 with strong discipline will always outperform someone earning $150,000 with weak discipline. Because wealth is not a salary. It's a habit multiplied over time. The $5 rule is the seed of that habit. It's the daily reminder that every dollar has a purpose and every choice has a consequence. It teaches you that wealth is not about the big wins, but the small, consistent actions that compound into something powerful. Just like fitness isn't about one intense workout, but about showing up every day. Once you internalize this, you begin to see money differently. You stop treating it like something that disappears without explanation. You start treating it like a tool that must be managed, guided, and multiplied. And that shift positions you far ahead of the average person who never pays attention to small expenses. When you follow the $5 rule long enough, you start gaining something far more valuable than money: clarity. You begin to understand your financial patterns, your tendencies, your weaknesses, and your strengths. You realize which purchases genuinely bring value and which ones are simply filling emotional gaps. And when you make that distinction, your financial behavior sharpens dramatically. Clarity removes confusion. Clarity eliminates regret. Clarity ends the cycle of, where did my money go? Suddenly, you can predict your spending. You can plan your future. You can build systems instead of relying on guesses. And systems are what separate the financially strong from the financially fragile. Systems turn chaos into order and uncertainty into confidence. The $5 rule is your first system, the simplest one, but often the most transformative. Because once you implement one system, adding more becomes natural. You start thinking about how you can invest the money you save. You start researching index funds, high-yield savings, ETFs, and compounding strategies. You start looking at your financial life like a builder, not a spender. You begin constructing a foundation strong enough to support your goals for years to come. And once you develop that mindset, opportunities start revealing themselves. You begin seeing ways to cut waste without sacrificing your lifestyle. You find subscriptions you no longer use. You notice patterns that drain your money. You catch habits that slow down your progress. Small leaks become visible, and visible leaks can finally be closed. This is how people go from barely managing to saving effortlessly. And once you start saving effortlessly, you finally gain the capacity to invest consistently. That's the critical shift, because investing is what takes you from stability to freedom. But you can't invest consistently without discipline. And that discipline starts with small money. The $5 rule prepares you for the moment you start watching your money grow instead of disappear. It prepares you for the moment you realize wealth wasn't out of reach. You simply needed a system. You begin to understand that $1 saved today is not just $1. It's a future investment, a future opportunity, a future return waiting to happen. People overlook this because they underestimate time. But time is the multiplier that turns small actions into extraordinary results. It turns $5 saved into thousands invested. It turns tiny habits into massive gains. Every moment you follow the $5 rule, you are planting seeds that your future self will thank you for. You're building a foundation that protects you from stress, fear, and financial uncertainty. You're creating a version of yourself that's stronger, sharper, and more capable. You're becoming someone who doesn't panic when unexpected costs appear. You're becoming someone who doesn't need to borrow, scramble, or worry. You start building emergency funds naturally. You start building investment portfolios deliberately. You move from being controlled by money to being in control of money. The shift is so subtle at first that you barely notice it. But one day, you look at your savings and realize you've built something real. You look at your investments and realize your money is finally growing for you. You look at your choices and realize you're acting with confidence instead of confusion. All of this begins with respecting the smallest amounts. Because the way you treat $5 is the way you treat your future. The $5 rule is not about restriction. It's about empowerment. It trains you to choose wisely, think long term, and break the habits that keep most people stuck. And once you master it, you never go back to being the person who spends without thinking. Because now you understand something life-changing. Small money is the doorway to big freedom. By the time you reach this level of discipline, something remarkable begins to happen. You start to feel lighter, not because life suddenly got easier, but because you finally stopped carrying the weight of financial uncertainty on your shoulders. Most people walk through life with invisible stress pulling them down. They smile, they joke, they pretend everything is fine. But deep inside there's a quiet fear about money that never fully goes away. The fear of not having enough. The fear of making a mistake. the fear of unexpected emergencies, the fear of the future, catching them unprepared. The fear disappears when discipline enters your life, because discipline gives you control, and control gives you confidence. And the $5 rule is one of the simplest, strongest forms of discipline you can build. It trains you to make intentional choices instead of emotional ones, and that skill changes every area of your financial life. You stop buying things for temporary satisfaction. You stop wasting money on things you forget about 2 days later. You start caring about your financial goals. You start protecting your future instead of pleasing your impulses. This isn't just about saving money. It's about building a mindset that refuses to go broke, no matter what happens, because someone who masters small decisions will always master big opportunities. They will always move with clarity, direction, and purpose. And that is the most powerful transformation the 5 rule gives you. It turns you into a builder, someone who stacks discipline on top of discipline until it becomes identity. Once that identity forms, wealth stops feeling like luck. It starts feeling like a result, predictable, repeatable, and within reach. You begin to make choices that future you will be proud of. You start thinking in years instead of minutes. You begin to realize that freedom isn't built in giant leaps. It's built in tiny steps, repeated with intensity and intention. The $5 rule teaches you to pause. That pause becomes a habit. That habit becomes a mindset. And that mindset becomes a lifestyle. A lifestyle where you're not chasing money, money begins chasing you. Because money always flows toward people who manage it well. When you follow this rule long enough, you start seeing patterns most people never notice. Patterns that reveal exactly why people stay broke, even when they earn more. You realize the problem isn't income. It's behavior. It's awareness. It's the silent spending that destroys progress before it even begins. You realize that the strongest financial people are not the ones who make the most. They are the ones who control the most. And you start becoming one of them, one calm decision at a time. You start choosing investments over impulses, growth over gratification, progress over comfort. These choices compound into something powerful. Not just wealth, but wisdom. Because once you understand the value of small money, you start understanding the value of everything else. Your time, your energy, your goals. You start protecting your priorities instead of scattering your focus. You start building a future instead of waiting for one to appear. And as you grow, your money grows with you. Your savings rise. Your investments compound. Your stability multiplies. You become the kind of person others look at and say, "How are you always so calm about money?" But they don't see the work you put in. They don't see the decisions you didn't make, the temptations you ignored, the discipline you built. They don't see the $5 you paused on, the tiny choice that created a massive shift in your life. They see the results, but not the rule. You know the rule. You lived it. You controlled the small so you could conquer the big. And now you've built something that most people will never experience. A future you can rely on. A future that isn't shaken by emergencies, surprises, or temporary setbacks. Because you've trained yourself to think long-term in a world where everyone else is obsessed with short-term pleasure. You've learned that money mirrors discipline. The more disciplined you are, the more money stays with you, grows for you, and works for you. And that is exactly why the $5 rule stops you from going broke. Not because $5 is life-changing, but because the habit behind those $5 is. It teaches you to pay attention, to question your impulses, to take control of your financial story instead of letting it control you. It teaches you that wealth starts with awareness. Awareness becomes discipline. Discipline becomes strength, and strength becomes freedom. You are no longer the person who spends without thinking. You're the person who evaluates, decides, and builds. You're no longer walking through life hoping things work out. You're actively shaping the outcome day by day. And this is the moment where everything changes. When you understand that you don't avoid going broke by luck, you avoid it by discipline. You avoid it by mastering the small choices that shape your financial destiny. You avoid it by becoming someone who respects every dollar and directs every decision. You avoid it by becoming intentional, focused, and unshakable. And that's exactly who you're becoming right now. So as you move forward, remember this. The $5 rule isn't just a financial tool. It's a mindset shift that rewires your entire relationship with money. Respect the small money, master the small choices, build the small habits, because your future is built $5 at a time, and every moment you pause, you strengthen the foundation of the life you're creating. And that life, your financially free life, begins today. Now, if you found value in this message and you want more videos that teach you how to build wealth step by step, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Subscribe so you never miss another lesson that could change your financial future. Subscribe because your journey to wealth deserves guidance, clarity, and momentum. And subscribe because this is just the beginning. There's so much more I want to teach you. So hit that subscribe button and let's build your financial freedom together.